Good morning. We'll call this meeting to order. I appreciate everybody that's online being with us today. Appreciate all the board members being here. It's a beautiful day. Yep, it's sort of like herding cats around here, but anyway, we'll get them all herded up here in a minute and get going. But anyway, we appreciate y'all being online with us, and these are a little different. I'll be glad when we can get back into Jim over there and have a real meeting with all the people here. That'll be nice when we're able to do that. But at this time, we'll ask our Mayor Pro-Tem, Buddy Fowler, if he would lead us in a word of prayer.
Father, Mayor, thank you. Let's bow our heads. Father, we come to you humbly this morning, asking for your guidance, seeking your grace. Father, we have a community, we have a world that's in chaos. We have been fighting to recover from Florence. We're fighting now the COVID-19 situation. And Father, in our streets across many towns in the country, we have riots going on. We have peaceful protests going on. Father, we ask you to reach out, give them understanding, help us, mend us as a country, Lord. We ask that you continue to protect our soldiers that are overseas, those here that are at home, and bring them home safely, Father. We ask you to be with the families of the soldiers, be with the families of those who have lost loved ones, Father. We ask all these things in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And I'll ask Councilman Don Helms if he'll deliver our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
She's a grand old flag.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to, I guess, our town manager for the retirement information. We haven't got any of our retirement people here, have we?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. But we did want to just make some very brief remarks and appreciativeness of Sergeant Cuneo, I believe, who had retired, and we sort of skipped over this at our last agenda as we had some other things on our mind, I believe. And then also our Public Works Director, Mr. Dean Wise, both retiring from the town, both very long-standing and committed professions here, serving the citizens and councils. So we did want to just recognize them for their service and appreciate what they've done over their careers. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Okay. We ask that all in attendance, including every one of us, please set your cell phones to silent or vibrate mode, and the council offers a time in this. Do we have some on the public forum?
We have no public comments submitted for this meeting.
Have no public comments slated for this meeting. Okay, but anyway, we do usually have comments during the meetings, and so hopefully we'll be back in our regular session for too long so you can just get up and speak. But anyway, in accordance with the council's adopted rules of procedure, council shall reserve responses to any of these questions until the council forum agenda. Okay, adoption of the agenda with no other items being considered separate. A motion to adopt the meeting agenda is in order. Do we have a closed session to be added to this?
Mayor, if I could, I'd like to add a closed session according to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-1A5 that we go in the closed session.
Thank you.
Added to the agenda.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we do that.
Okay.
He made the motion, I'll second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. So, thank you.
And now I make a motion, we adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? None. Okay. Thank you. All righty. Let's see. All right. This time, do I have a motion for approval of consent agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All righty. We're going fast here. All right, manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, council. I just want to give you my brief report. It continues to be a pleasure to serve council and citizens of Surf City. I'll get into more of the budget message when time comes on the agenda. But wanted to give you a quick update. Federal project, which we'll talk about a little bit more in closed session. But staff is moving forward on necessary elements to reach the point of the project partnership agreement, or PPA. We are respectfully requesting council consider moving into closed session at the end of meeting to discuss property acquisition. As you know, staff has transitioned into phase 1 of our reopening plan that was provided to all employees. Operations have been going well and everyone continues to work hard at their tasks and assignments. Wanted to let you know that our Parks and Rec staff is working diligently to make sure that summer camp continues on. So as of right now, they are still scheduled to hold summer camp this year. Safety protocols are being put in place, of course taking recommendations from CDC and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And additional information will go out to all parents in regards to parent safety as well as camper safety. And again, hats off to that staff, as they've had a real curveball thrown at them that they've had to address and put out information so that we can carry on with that. It's especially this year, I think will be a very highly desired program activity, especially for parents who've had kids with them not being in school. With that being said, I do have a little bit of bad news in that we will not be holding any organized sports. We've tried to work with the governor's office to get guidance on organized sports, but unfortunately with the 25 mass gathering number outdoors, they are saying that applies to organized sports, so it's virtually impossible to have a baseball game with only 25. That means no parents, no coaches, and it would become very disorganized. However, staff is going to work very hard to convert some of those sports to offer an athletic camp so that we can still utilize some of the coaches and still let those kids have an opportunity to hone their skills in whatever sports. Organized sports are a big thing for our youth, and we want to try to accommodate that to the greatest extent. As of this morning, J.H. Batts has been repaved. Striping and tie-in to the waterside portion of the project are forthcoming, but overall it is a much needed improvement. So if you haven't been down J.H. Batts in the last 2 days, you're in for a much smoother ride. So weather and timing was good on that. The contractor has worked overnight the last 2 nights, providing limited disruptions, as we do have some businesses along J.H. Batts and didn't want to interrupt them. So that work has gone well. Getting into the CARES Act funding, as you'll recall, this is specifically for the COVID sort of supplement and assistance. Staff has submitted cost reimbursement requests to both Pender County and Onslow County for expenses related to the preparation and response to the coronavirus. These costs are mostly made up of personal protection equipment that the town had to procure, emergency medical sick leave, and teleworking expenses. So we do hope to see a reimbursement from our county partners, which will minimize our application process through FEMA for those types of reimbursements. In addition to that, through the CARES Act, there is some additional EDA funding available. So the town is trying to take advantage of that opportunity. So we're working on an outline and narrative to submit through EDA funding related to economical impacts from COVID-19. Funded is being requested for various business-related opportunities, including development of marketing and branding strategies to attract new visitors and to recapture return visitors, identify strategies to assist in diversifying the local economy, and resiliency measures to adapt to situations such as a pandemic and natural hazards that provide disruptions to our local economy. Additional business relationship strategies, developing a retail study and gap analysis, and to look at existing initiatives to support our local seafood economy. So we do look forward to getting a narrative and submitting that to our partners at EDA to help guide us through that process and get some of these initiatives underway to assist our business community become more resilient through times such as a pandemic or a hurricane or any other activity that provides those disruptions. So with that being said, that concludes my update. As you all know, you can certainly call or email and ask any questions. I'll be more than happy to try to get those answered for you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate all your work on that. And up next is something that I think the whole crew, all the department heads and departments and all the town employees have been working on hard, and that is our budget. And so at this time, I will ask our town manager, Mr. Kyle, if he would deliver our report on the budget.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and Council. Again, it's my pleasure to deliver this to you, as well as thanking staff for all of their assistance coming in mid-budget year. There's a lot that goes into these things. So a lot of hard work on the department head level, communicating with their employees and knowing what their needs are on a departmental basis. Working with finance staff to help get the numbers together and utilizing some of the processes that are already in place for the town. So at this time, I'll sort of just kind of go over the fiscal year 2021 budget message. As a reminder, this is our operating budget for period starting July 1 of 2020 through June 30 of 2021. And in accordance with Section 159-11 of the North Carolina General Statutes, I am pleased to present the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget for the town of Surf City for your review and consideration. The budget presented is a sound financial plan and has been prepared with the council's goals and objectives adopted from their annual planning session and budget workshops. All sections of the proposed budget are in conformance with the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act as amended. A balanced budget for the upcoming fiscal year or an interim budget must be adopted by June 30th, 2020. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 159-12, a public hearing on the proposed budget will be held on Friday, June 19th, 2020 at 10 a.m. in the Community Center Gymnasium. This date will be advertised for public notice, and copies of the budget will be made available to local news media. With the submittal of the budget proposal to the council, copies will be available for public inspection on the town's website, in the office of the town clerk, and at the front desk of the community center. I do ask, though, if the public wishes to see a copy, to please call Town Hall, and we'll make that available for you, as we currently are not allowing just walk-ins to come in, but we do want to accommodate that as much as possible. The proposed fiscal year 2021 Town of Surf City budget is balanced and totals $18,102,021 for all operations. The budget is spread over the following funds: the general fund at $11,281,493, the accommodation tax fund, which is at $1,200,000, water and sewer fund at $5,620,528. This year, the town's capital improvement budget is being included for consideration within the budget ordinance adoption process and outlines the current fiscal year as part of this ordinance. Future fiscal years will be built into future budget adoptions. The town's largest single source of revenue continues to be from property tax. Next year's figure is estimated at $6,526,972 and amounts to some 58% of the general fund revenue. for next fiscal year. At the time this proposed budget was being prepared and based on numbers provided by Pender and Onslow County Tax Departments, the town is using a tax base figure of $1,646,631,162, which is a 4% growth rate. This figure is applied to the current tax rate of 41 cents per $100 in valuation and a tax collection rate of 97%, generating that $6,526,972 in property tax revenue. Each cent of property tax generates approximately $152,940 in revenues. Second largest source of general fund revenue is derived from local sales tax, which is anticipated to be $1,686,099 in fiscal year 2021. The third being solid waste user fees of $1.235 million. Water and sewer fees collected in the town's water and sewer fund generate approximately $5.62 million for the utility's separate operation. I am recommending an adjustment to the fee structure for providing water and sewer services, which is directly generated based on operational expenditures as well as debt service on existing and ongoing projects. Other revenue sources such as interest income and a variety of state collected local revenues are projected to be flat or slightly increase. For example, telecommunications and cable TV for the foreseeable future. There is a 2 to 3 month lag in receiving some of these revenues, so the annual trend is not easily observed. Also, the town was notified mid-fiscal year of the withholding of the local ABC profit distributions. So that's a revenue that we will not see or not anticipating seeing. Brief little update, I was kind of perusing the county's update, and on June 15th, the ABC board executive director will be giving the county commissioners an update with this matter. It looks like they potentially will be moving towards a more traditional financing option for their capital expenditures, which could mean that we will see some revenues, which is contrary to what we were told. So we created this budget with that revenue shortfall. So anything that we do see or any decisions made on that will be included into revenues and will be a positive for us to look forward. But staff will tune into that and make sure we're up to speed as to what's going on. Getting into expenditures for the town, expenditure estimates were compiled and formulated by the budget officer and finance director based upon written requests and justifications submitted by the various department heads. These requests were made available for council review and included in the budget workbook. Again, this process started back in January and February. Department heads were very diligent in their submittals and had most of this stuff in before the coronavirus really took hold within our community. So again, we commend those department heads for their effort. Each department's request was given consideration based on current and prior year expenditures, proposed work program needs, inflationary trends, and a review of respective departmental operations. Again, the unknown of the impact of the coronavirus when these were requested weren't there. So we've had to do some modification and juggling, but feel that what's being proposed is fair with the unknowns that we have. As a result of the continuing economic conditions, expenditures are being budgeted very conservatively to ensure that they do not exceed to any great extent anticipated revenues. Personnel costs compose 35% of our expenditures and include salaries, federal insurance, health insurance, retirement, workers' comp, and other related federal and state employer costs. Working with the league, workers' comp, property and liability, and insurance rates are estimated to increase this year. Budget expenditures for capital improvements are conservative over the next fiscal year because of revenue shortfalls, economic conditions, and the desire to conservatively balance the budget. However, we are able to address some of the capital needs of the town so we do not sit stagnant which certainly is a positive in a growing community. Also unique to the current fiscal year and anticipated revenue shortfalls due to the global pandemic, COVID-19, it is anticipated that staff will present an update to council mid-fiscal year for additional considerations of capital expenditures. This is probably out of the ordinary for a jurisdiction to do a comprehensive review of the budget mid-fiscal year, but we feel that that's a fair approach to take, understanding that some of our revenues, we don't really know what those will be for 2 or 3 months down the road. So it's hard to communicate to council what our sales tax revenues will look like, what our occupancy tax revenues will look like. So we do want to make sure we reserve that time right after the calendar year to bring this back to you for additional considerations of the town needs. Some of the highlights is that the general fund revenues increased over last year by approximately 8%. No increase in solid waste user fees currently proposed. No property tax increase is being proposed with this budget. The total workforce is projected for 95 full-time employees, which is higher than present year, with three new positions proposed within the police department to add 3 new additional entry-level police officers to the force. Based upon usage and age and gender trends, the insurance premium rates with Blue Cross and Blue Shield is estimated to renew a 3 to 10% increase. Our cost this past year of $651.71 per employee per month may rise to $684.30, which we will not know the actual cost until August. So again, tried to budget for that expenditure based on what we know. Also, a 2% cost of living adjustment, or COLA, is proposed to all full-time employees as of July 1. A 2% allocation for increases based upon annual evaluations is available for departments. For those employees not in line to receive increases for certification, satisfactory probationary periods, promotion and rank or duties, a revised pay and classification scale will accommodate this and is broken down by 2.5% increments. Your current pay and classification scale for grades and steps and grades within that scale are broken up into 5%. So we felt that it's easier to add an additional step in there for 2.5. So it doesn't do anything for the ultimate, but we can then work on 2.5% increments and not just 5. General fund projects funded include the Powell bill at approximately $140,000. These monies are to go towards maintaining and repairing town-owned streets, as well as sidewalk and bike and ped infrastructure. So staff will prioritize projects based on our adopted plan and present back to council what those items are and get those projects completed. We'd like to see that plan incrementally get implemented and setting aside capital funding towards priority implementation projects will certainly achieve that over the years. Emergency management, we've allocated monies to replace our current radio system, which contains our AM radio station, which is used during emergency situations. And monies have been set aside to help the fire department implement the exhaust capture system located at both stations 23 and 25. As you know, and part of the capital improvement plan and narrative provided is that this will provide additional safety measures for our employees to take the exhaust fumes from the diesel engines from the fire trucks out of the bays. Capital improvement plan, you've been presented with a full 5-year CIP, which will help guide the town in making strategic investments from the general fund as well as our enterprise fund, or water and sewer. Some of the major projects that we will be undertaking is the municipal complex, which is our new town hall and police department at $6.7 million. Parks and Rec and Tourism at 1.2, which includes the purchase of Medlin property, as well as options to construct a new park, fishing pier, gazebo, and playground However, those improvements are going to be very heavily reliant on grant funding. And Parks and Rec is working diligently to apply for those funds so that we can successfully match those requirements and get those projects implemented. Again, very important projects in a growing community to be able to meet the service demands for our citizens. Public utilities, as you know, there's a myriad of projects that are ongoing and requested to be funded in this current fiscal year, as well as fiscal years beyond this, which include the brine disposal for the water treatment plant, the iron irrigation disposal for the water treatment plant, a stormwater replacement project along Little Kinston, the subaqueous crossing of the intercoastal waterway, the addition of well number 6, which is another high production well, replacing the water treatment plant filter media, which is on its end of life and will hopefully increase water quality, the wastewater treatment plant headworks project, Juniper Swamp expansion, as well as the disposal areas of areas 1 through 5 out there to try to maximize as much spray effluent as possible. Getting into the fund balances, the general fund, we will finish this budget year with an estimated unassigned general fund balance of $6.2 million, which is approximately 78.53% of all of our general fund expenditures. The state recommendation is a minimum of 8%. However, understanding our current environment and our susceptibility to natural hazards, typically beach towns want to reserve a much higher percentage of this. So we're doing good, and our trend continues to move up, which we do commend our finance staff for being frugal and diligent with taxpayer money, making purchases in a responsible manner and budgeting for those in a responsible manner. The other large item to address is our beach nourishment fund. These funds are left over room tax disbursements as well as a portion of our property taxes. These funds may be used as local matches for shallow draft inlet grants or as funding towards beach nourishment projects. As we all know, the main priority will be our federal project that is upcoming. Our estimated reserve at June 30, 2020 is approximately $15.2 million. At this time, the council wishes to continue using these funds to start the federal project, in which we will do. And in bold, I did note, that the balance includes reimbursements from FEMA from Hurricane Florence, which is in the amount of $12.5 million. If these monies are not received in a timely manner, the estimated fund balance will be $2.7 million, which should carry us through our minor steps to get us moving forward with the PPA sign until we can get that FEMA reimbursement. Our water and sewer fund, comprised of water and sewer activities, this fund closed fiscal year 1920 with a combined unrestricted net position of $2.7 million. So in summary, the fiscal year 2021 Surf City budget reflects the council's service priorities for the citizens, meets the council's stated goals and objectives, and is responsive to town-wide needs while reflecting a conservative approach to municipal revenues and expenditures. On behalf of the administrative and finance operations staff, department heads, and all employees, I am pleased to present this proposed budget of the town of Surf City for the next fiscal year to the mayor and town council for their consideration, review, and adoption. We look forward to working with the council in the delivery of town services to our citizens in the most professional, businesslike, economical, and environmentally sensible manner possible. With regards, signed myself, town manager. At this time, I'll be more than happy to try to answer any questions. I did bring the big guns with me to do a deep dive into any sort of sections we need to get through this. And as a reminder for the public, this budget will be available for inspection. And again, Friday, June 19th at 10 a.m., we will hold a public hearing in person at the Community Center Gymnasium. We will spread out chairs to be as socially distanced as possible. to create a safe environment. And if we do have overflow capacity there, we will ask for a one in, one out on the outside doors of that gymnasium. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, sir. Does any of the council have any questions for our town manager? Yes, sir, Jerry.
Yes. I just have one quick question. I just want to make sure I have clarity on this. On the COLA, the 2% COLA amount that's proposed for full-time employees, I noticed in there you said upon annual evaluations, it says certification satisfactory for probation. So a person that just got hired within the last year, 6, 8, 9 months, they don't qualify for this, is that correct?
No, if they're a full-time employee is July 1, they will qualify for the COLA.
So even if they don't have a length of time with the
That's
city, they would
correct.
qualify for that?
That's correct.
Okay.
And typically in a new
Is
hire.
that, and I'm sorry, is that normal, or is that what you're promoting? Is that, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I believe that's what the town has always done with the policy saying if they're a full-time employee, employed with the town as of July 1, they will qualify for that because the COLA will be applied to that pay and classification scale.
Okay.
So if everybody's salary gets adjusted to that scale.
Okay.
And that's what we're really trying to do is get folks in line with that, so there's not hiring occurring in between a grade 15 step 2. Say it's going to be a really random number at 43,523, but we're trying to avoid hiring people at just $44,000. We want to get them into that step and grade process.
Yeah, so in other words, it's across the board increase is what it is.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
My question,
Yes, sir.
mine's not a question, mine's an objection.
Okay.
I'm in objection to hiring 3 policemen. I believe we could replace the ones we got that's retiring and hiring 1 policeman. You're asking all of these department heads to cut out all their cars and vehicles, and you're freezing all the hiring, and then you turn around and give the police department 3 new policemen, which he didn't even ask for to begin with. All he asked for was 1 employee, and you're giving him 3. And I'm in objection to that. And also, you cut out those trucks, fire trucks, that won't even be ordered until January. Folks, y'all don't realize what you're doing. You are putting the public in jeopardy. These trucks have got a lot of hours on them, and the reliability is what scares me. We've been trying to add trucks for 3 years now, and you keep putting it off. All we ask from the fire department, and all I'm asking, because these trucks are getting old, and I don't want this town embarrassed, and I don't want the fire department embarrassed. I know a new truck can break down, but these trucks needs to be kept in the budget to $650,000 to order 2 trucks. It'll take anywhere, once we won't even think about ordering any trucks until January. If you don't put this in the budget, these people that manufacture trucks won't even talk to you until you have this in your budget. They won't even talk to you, so we can't even give you an estimate of what these trucks are going to cost. And the reliability of these trucks, and that's putting it off, you would be put off probably for 2 years or 2.5 years before we could ever get trucks in here. That's dangerous, folks. I'm telling you, it's dangerous. And I don't want us to come into this situation and you say you can look at the budget again in January. Well, these people won't come talk to you and give you specs on trucks unless it's in the budget.
And we need it in the budget. Even if we ordered them in January, we would not even receive them for 12 months to 13 months after that. And you wouldn't even be responsible for the other 650,000 till a year to a year and a half later. And if we're added into the budget now, you wouldn't even be responsible for the 650,000 until January. And then you wouldn't even be responsible for the other for another whole physical year. And it's too dangerous. I mean, we've been putting it off, and it's time we gotta quit putting it off, because these trucks ain't getting any younger, and the maintenance on them is getting, Ashley can tell you, the maintenance is getting high on them, and the reliability is going down the tube, and I don't like that situation. And why we need 3 more policemen, I don't understand it, but I can see giving him the one he asked for. The chief didn't even ask for these 3 policemen. He wants 1 more. He wanted civilian. We can hire a full-time sworn officer in that position. I'm in objection to that, totally.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yeah, so this is Dwight Torres. In regards to the police cars to begin with, I think what was presented to us during a work session, and even after they went back and retook a look at it, we had more police cars than we had uniformed service officers. So that was one of the reasons I was opposed to additional police cars. And then we have some police cars that I believe one at least is on order. And this was some work that was done by Jeremy. And we sat down, we spoke with the mayor, and we walked through this. As to the need for additional police officers, it seems like every time we try to do something around here, there seems to be a complaint or an observation that we don't have enough resources, that resources being police officers. In regards to the fire trucks, I don't think we said no, we just said we would put it off. We'll look at it again mid-year. And one question for you, because I know you're heavily involved with the fire department, or the chief, whoever wants to answer it, are the current police trucks passing inspection?
You mean fire truck?
I'm sorry, fire trucks passing, certified inspections.
I'll let him answer that, but I'm gonna answer something first. If you go back and look, and if you'll contact with Ron, some of his cars that he has to keep on his list, other departments have. And to my knowledge, he don't have any 29 cars. He don't have 6 cars sitting around doing nothing.
No.
And as far as the fire trucks, this is something that's going to come back to haunt you if you don't get those fire trucks, leave that in the budget, and I'll let the chief answer.
So hold on, before the chief gets up there, 29 cars is what Chief Shanahan presented. That was his data. Then he came
Yeah,
back.
but there was,
If I can
there
finish.
was numbers skipped.
Let him finish.
Yeah, so 29 cars was what he presented. It's not a data point that I made up. Then when he went back after we questioned, I think what was presented was 27. So now we were down to 27. We have 21 police officers on staff. And we did the ratio to the public, and it doesn't appear to me that we have enough police officers, especially when we're at the largest capacity for the town during the summer months. And that's what we really need to be prepared for. So I understand he wanted a custodian. That was a civilian position. We thought that a police officer instead, so he can duplicate the role as a custodian and as a uniformed sworn officer, would be more appropriate. And the additional 2 was to start to make up for that lack of resource that they themselves say is at hand when we want to do anything around here. So whether it's safety, I think the right move are the police officers. And again, I go back to the question, are the current fire trucks certified? as far as inspection goes?
Yes, sir. All of our trucks currently meet all of our inspection criteria. So that, to answer your question, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to speak? Okay, these were some hard decisions. The board looked at it. Our problem right now, our federal government owes us about 12.5 million, right? And if anybody knows anything about government, they do a fine job for us, except they are a little slow sometimes. So we have no idea when we're going to get this 12.5 back. We have our beach nourishment project slated to start December 15th or 1. Okay. We have got to have enough money to do that. All right, so fire trucks amounts to 1.3 million, because if we obligate, the way they want to do it is they want to buy 2 fire trucks. So we're going to have to obligate to buy both fire trucks. Now, one fire truck would come out of this year's budget, and then the other one out of next year's, but that's $650,000. And then the 3 police cars is about $170,000, somewhere in there, 150, 170,000. So what we're doing just like most people do at home. You know, you've got a car and it's got 130,000 miles on it, but you're not sure what your income is going to be this year, so you don't jump out there and buy that car until you get into the year and you figure out how your income's coming in. Then you can look at it and you say, oh yeah, well, we can afford this, but we may have to buy, a Chevrolet instead of a Cadillac. But what we're doing is we're reserving this money so that we've got the money to do what we've got to do, the beach nourishment project, and some of the other things that has to be done, some of the streets that have to be repaired, stuff that has to be done. I agree that the chief needs some new fire trucks, and we're still going to look at that come January. We will meet again. If we get all of our money from our government by then we can probably go ahead and obligate. Don said if we don't order them by January. So that's why we're going to meet before January the 1st. And if we can do it, then we'll order them in January. And so we'll still be on the line like we've got. Police cars, we'll do the same thing with those if we've got, if we get this money back.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a problem with the police cars. My problem is the fire truck.
Okay, all right. But anyway, well, we're still going to look at the police cars because the police chief wanted some new cars. But right now we feel like, looking over everything, and that's the responsibility of this board, is to look at everything as over a whole. Working with our town employees, with the manager and the finance officer and the other people in the town, then we have to do the best we can for the town with the money we've got at hand. And we do have to stay in budget. So if this year we're looking, and when we look at a budget, we are pretty sure that we can take in this amount of money. Hopefully, it'll be a good year and we'll take in more money. So we can always go back and redo the budget and add other things to it if we have more money coming in. And like I say, the big thing right now is that federal money that we're waiting on, that we're not sure when we'll get. And with all of the stuff that's going on in Washington, all the budget requests that's going up there right now, because of all the COVID stuff, I'm not sure how quick they'll act to get that money to us. So we've just got to be reasonable and keep in mind what we've got to do to the people. We have told them we were going to do the beach nourishment project, so we're going to make sure that we can fund the beach nourishment project and get it done. That's my comment now. Mr. Fowler.
Mayor, if I may, that's Councilman Fowler. I think with all the things we've gone through, the Florence, we have people still trying to get over Florence, haven't recovered completely from Florence yet. Our town's still trying to get over Florence. We've had the coronavirus come in, and that's created another problem. And our citizens, and as well as us, have been through enough without having to go through anything added to that. What I'm getting at is increasing taxes. We need to look at our budget, and I think we've done a great job as a council looking at it. I know our people, our department heads has made recommendations to the manager, and he's looked at it, him and the finance officer, and they've whittled it down based on what we thought we could do and the revenue we've got coming in. We really need to pinch pennies. I could think the town can afford to spend a little more on maintenance on the fire truck and police cars for a year to get us through this crunch that we've got and get us back on track. And I think it's reasonable to look at it and ask that we reevaluate it again based on possible revenues we can get in by the mid-year. Will we all love to have new fire trucks and new police cars? Absolutely. I don't think the safety of our citizens is going to be called into question because of our municipality agreements we have with the other towns. And I realize their trucks don't have what we've got. But at the same time, I think we can still answer the calls that we need for safety, for fire and rescue with what we've got and look at it in mid-year. Now, the maintenance, certified, the trucks, Chief just said that all our vehicles are certified, fire department wise, and can make the calls and meet the calls. We may have to increase our maintenance budget to get through with a year, but as you said, as you mentioned in your analogy, it's the same thing we do at home. We look at what we've got coming in, where we need to spend it at to get the best results for our family that we can get and keep our heads above water. That's the same thing we're doing here for the town. We're doing the same thing. I don't disagree with Mr. Helms' statement that we'd love to have fire trucks. I agree with that. But this is the time right now, we don't need to take that money and obligate it out. We need to keep it where we got it, keep our budget in tow. If we've got something to look at in mid-November, he made a statement that they won't even talk to you unless you've got money in the budget. I find that disheartening for a business that's doing business, not to talk to someone that wants to buy a vehicle and give them a ballpark or preliminary figure on what it could cost to do that, to buy that vehicle. To me, that's not good business. But that may be their protocol. I don't know that. But in looking, and I know the manager has done some serious looking at this budget, him and the finance officer, and we have done some serious looking at it, and we've come out with what we think can be we can afford. We come out with a budget that does not increase the taxes on our citizens, and I think that's paramount going into this year with all the devastation we've gone through and still going through with this COVID-19 virus. So I'm in favor of the budget he's presented, have no problem with it, and we'll look at it again, see what we can do in mid-year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, this budget will be online from now until June 19th. So we had it online, and I'm sure if you got any questions, you can call either the town manager or the finance officer or Stephanie will be there. Any of them can answer your call, and if they don't know the answer right then, they'll find out and get it back to you. So anyway, thank you folks for listening, and let you know that I do appreciate all the departments, especially the heads. I know they, are really trying to look after their departments the best they can, and trying to get everything so that they can give you all the service that they're able to, that they could ever provide. And they will be doing it. It may just be a little bit later before we can approve some of this stuff. So let's see. At this time, I think we're going to turn it over to Miss Amy Kimes at this time.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My first agenda item today is the request for site approval of the Triton Village 2, Phase 1. So in your packet is a request for the site plan. The project began TRC review in August of 2019. The initial review was for the entire tract of land containing a development similar to the existing Triton Village project. During the review process, the developer decided to only develop the front 2 buildings located on this piece of property, while leaving the back to be developed at a later time. The site plan before you is for the front 2 buildings and associated parking and utilities only. Just a little bit of site information. Wellman Commercial is the developer. The site total is approximately 4.5 acres, with the front 2 buildings being approximately 17,400 square feet of retail commercial office space. It is in the C3 Extended Entranceway Commercial District zoning, and it is located adjacent to NC 5210 between Triton Village and Charlie Medlin Drive. It does have a state stormwater permit and will fall under those guidelines for stormwater. The revised site plan, which is before you today, was submitted in response to comments sent from Mike Dixon as a combined Town of Surf City response. The comments have been addressed by this submittal and is approved by TRC. The site will provide pedestrian access by providing a sidewalk in the Charlie Medlin Drive right-of-way. The Town of Surf City Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan shows a multi-use path on the opposite side of the road with sidewalks on the adjacent side. The project will provide access to the existing Triton Village development. Planning Board reviewed the site plan at the May 14th, 2020 meeting and recommended approval. If you have any questions, please let me know.
This is the old Rochelle track, isn't it?
Do what?
This is the old Rochelle track, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't have a problem with it. I make a recommendation, or make a motion that we approve it.
All in favor, say aye.
Thank you, Amy.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, so I've already got the motion. Everybody agree? Yeah. Okay, all right. I'm not hearing everybody, but anyway, okay, thank you, Miss Amy, and I think you're up again, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
You just popular girls.
I am today. Today before you, I'd like to talk about municipal right-of-way sidewalk dining. As COVID-19 has come up, there's been more requests for outside dining. So one of the things that we were looking at is that North Carolina has passed legislation allowing dining in the right-of-way owned by the North Carolina Department of Transportation in areas that meet certain criteria. This will provide an opportunity for local restaurants to expand their seating area by providing additional outdoor seating. In your packet today is an ordinance, as well as the procedure for municipal sidewalk dining agreements explanation provided by the Department of Transportation. The ordinance that I used for this one was a model from the town of Clinton. The reason I chose theirs is it's the most recently adopted version in Division 3. So they just signed the agreement. It's got everything that they need, and it allows us to then customize it to our town. So I would like to discuss this ordinance with y'all. I have a few questions where I made some changes in there and some things that I just want to point out and make sure that you've seen and that you are in agreement with. We will then provide this ordinance to DOT for concurrence. After the adoption of the ordinance, we will have an agreement with DOT, and then once all of that comes together and everybody signed everything, we can start a process of permitting these. These will have to be a permitted use based on the DOT requirements, and part of that is just to prove that they have all of the things such as the insurance that has been requested. So while we're working through the process of getting this signed, I will be working through the process and viewpoint of creating this, and I guess at some point maybe we need to talk about a fee associated with that, since it's a brand new thing. So just something to be thinking about. So in your packet is the Town Ordinance. I want to start off by saying this ordinance will encompass the state and town right-of-ways. We are not distinguishing between them. We are looking at both state and town right-of-ways. You must maintain a distance of 6 feet from the edge of pavement. The language with the DOT is written in a way that it's more intended for a downtown setting with a curb and gutter setting, but it does not clearly say that. It does reference edge of travelway and things like that. It references pedestrian travelway and not actual sidewalks. So that does give us the flexibility out on, say, 50 and 210 on the island to look at this area. Even though we don't have a curb and gutter and a full sidewalk that goes up to the building, we still have that wide right-of-way and have an opportunity to look at this. So in modeling it after some of the other ones, I looked at only doing it in the C1 or the Central Business District. This area is located on island. The C1 district allows the buildings to have no side setbacks with a 10-foot landscape front yard setback, where the C3 does not allow such narrow setbacks. So this allows the proximity from the building to the actual area to not be so great. And once we get all the setbacks off island, it really doesn't make any sense to have people 25, 30 foot away from your building out in the right-of-way, and most of that area is ditched anyway and wouldn't really provide a seating area that could be used. So I just want to point out that this is for the Central Business District on island. Also, the person, as you're reading through this, the person operating the sidewalk diner must be the adjacent owner or property owner. So I can't let my friend have his snow cone shop on my patio area outside. It has to be my business and my business only. It also in here says that sidewalk dining must not exceed 50% capacity of the interior. That was a number that was chosen. I think it's good to limit it. It also, if you read in here, limits the distance past the actual building that it can go to 8 foot, so that you can't, if you're the only restaurant in there, you just can't take up the whole road frontage, even if there are other buildings in there. And you would have to pass your property lines, your walls. You would have to have the adjacent store agree to that. In here it says that the store must either, or the restaurant must open onto or have a pedestrian way to the sidewalk area, so there must be a direct connection so that somebody, 4 stores down can't then utilize the sidewalk out in the right-of-way. This ordinance says, and what I do want to discuss, this ordinance, when I looked at it, had wrought iron furniture. Obviously, we can't use things that rust really quickly out here, and also stated no logos on the umbrellas. I've noticed some of the umbrellas that are currently being used out here do have logos. I don't know if that is an issue with the town or a concern. My language in here for the furniture just says, sidewalk dining furnishings must be constructed of a sturdy, weather-resistant material such as aluminum, wood, composite material. One of the things we also didn't want was something that was light, with their winds that could blow or be easily knocked into traffic.
Fabric umbrellas.
You can have fabric umbrellas, but they must be of a commercial grade material.
Gotcha.
But it does limit logos or other signage and says that you cannot have those on your umbrella.
Right.
That's something for y'all to comment on as we kind of go through this. I wanted to just kind of point out some of the things. It also on here says that if you do have a sidewalk and there are spills, you are responsible for pressure washing or doing whatever to clean and maintain that sidewalk once a week so that it doesn't just get nasty out there. You also have to maintain an actual pedestrian path. You can't just block the entire area. The alcohol portion, I didn't know as much about the ABC permits and public drunkenness and all of those fun things. So if you're serving alcohol in here, we have that it must be fenced off with specific exits, and at those exits, it must be posted that you cannot take your alcohol outside of this area. Also, the ABC permit would have to encompass that area as a part of the building. And I know that's something they're doing with COVID-19, but in the long run, you would have to, once businesses hopefully go back to normal, they would have to then update their ABC permit and continue that. It also requires a certain amount of liability insurance. I would like to consider making these permits good for the time frame of that liability insurance, with the ability to renew it as long as you provide your next liability insurance. But if we set an actual date on them expiring, I think it will be easier to keep up with ensuring that they have the liability insurance. We also state in here that there are no outdoor bars. You may only bring alcohol from inside to the outside. You cannot set up an actual bar. So those were the main highlight points that I wanted to kind of point out and ask about. Does anyone have any comments like Mr. Torres?
I do, Dwight Torres. So I did read through this carefully. I've got 4 questions for you.
Okay.
First, you hit it right up front, the cost for a permit. What is the cost for a normal business now? Do they have a certain permitting process? Is it yearly? Or why would this not just be an extension of that? Because, and I should have asked this first, is this as a result of COVID-19 in any way to give people more seating capacity?
No, sir. This was actually passed a couple years ago. So it has been in your downtown settings where you had wider right-of-ways that are, just concrete, and you also have curb and gutter, and then parking. A lot of your smaller buildings in these downtown areas were looking for a way to expand onto the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
I'm familiar with that. So we've been after this for some time? Or how did it come about now?
I saw that this was there, and I asked Kyle if it was something that the town would be interested in.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, especially under the circumstances we're under. But I was just trying to see what the driving factor was. I would be...
Honestly, I found out that the one in Clayton got passed, which is in our division, so it's all the DOT people that we would work with.
Okay, so going back to the permit fee, why would we want an additional cost to a business to operate? Why wouldn't this just be an extension of what they already pay to do business?
We typically, when there is a significant paperwork fee for, review for something, we require a fee for that. So my thought would be, if we wanted to do a fee, and the fee just kind of, as I was writing through this, was just my question is, should we have one?
Yeah,
But if we had one, it would be, you do your upfront $50 fee or whatever to make sure that everything meets for us to go out and look at the site. I have to do a plan review. There's a lot into it. We also need to check with DOT and make sure that they don't have any safety concerns with that specific area. And then your renewal would just be, hey, provide me the paperwork.
Okay,
And then
so-
these are not transferable. So if you sell to the mayor, then the mayor can't just use your permit and continue. He would have to get a new one showing his liability insurance.
So are we going to try to answer that question before we take this and vote on this ordinance?
The fee question?
Yes.
Now, are you talking about the fee ordinance?
The fee for this permitting process.
I mean, you got time involved.
Right, those people are already being paid, right, to do their job.
Yeah, but the permit
Yeah.
fees go back into the
But-
building inspection and the planning department to pay for those jobs.
Let me, can I just,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not a fee guy, but I think something very small, because they're gaining space. There's a lot of red tape to get that done. I don't think is a bad thing at all. I mean, as long as it's small, I'm not talking a couple $100, but if I have to pay a $50 fee, at least I've got something invested in this process, and it is very time consuming. I'm not against that at all. I understand what your concern is. These people are getting paid, but I think there's more to it than that, actually, I think. So I think it wouldn't be a bad thing on that aspect, because I'm gaining space that I normally would not have had. So there's going to be, it's going to be extensive. This is not easy. You got to go to ABC board and you got to get them now to be able to add that to your ABC premises. You know what I'm saying? And then you've got to be able to go back and you got to get there's a lot of steps into that process. That's not going to be easy.
That was
Yeah.
just one question. Two, in paragraph B on that first page, I guess it's the line item number 2. I just want to be clear, where it ends with restaurant/food service operator, is that the owner? Is that what we're saying, operator owner? I just want to know who that person is.
It would be whoever's operating the restaurant.
So the
They
manager.
own the building, but operate the
Right,
restaurant.
but it's
Basically who the ABC permit is under or who the license is.
Well, the ABC permit, you have to get the owner of the building,
Gotcha.
has to also be on that,
Gotcha.
acknowledging that you're getting the ABC, so there's both people involved in that process.
okay. So second to last, how long will, you talked about the process, how long do you think it'll take to get this implemented? Just rough.
Could take a couple of months. But again, I guess we have some right-of-way dining now that's going on that we have not made them move. This would now provide the liability insurance and put some requirements on there to make sure that that is maintained and looked after.
And I'm guessing then this is just going to be the normal thing going forward, because the last question was, because I didn't know the details and the history behind this was whether this was temporary, then I guess it's not. Once it's approved, it's just the way, it'll be a standard business practice.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, that's all I had on that. Thank you.
Very good. I have a quick question, not a question. I'd like the council to consider to allow logoed umbrellas, because a lot of businesses get those free from their distributors. You know, why should we have to, I mean, if I'm dealing with a wholesaler and they give me 6 free umbrellas that are super nice, high quality, why would I want to go out and spend $50 or $100 on an umbrella if I'm going to get those for free? I don't think we should have more flags and all that, but I don't think an umbrella that has a logo on it is offensive. I think it's just...
And they are currently on private property, and that's why I wanted to bring that up. Currently, we do have some umbrellas that have logos on private property. So did we want to distinguish between the right-of-way and the private property by not having them, or did we want to allow them
Right away.
in the right-of-way?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I don't want to speak and can't speak for the DOT, but it may be a attention of drivers on the road thing, keep the umbrellas as simple as possible.
Trying to read that umbrella.
And if you have a bunch of flashing lights and things like that, and that's something staff and I can address in finalizing the ordinance, what's allowed. Again, I'm not trying to speak for DOT, but I know that there are several ordinances that prohibit that type of signage because it detracts attentions of the motorists. So.
And they have to review and approve our ordinance before and agree to it as a part of our agreement process with them.
So
Okay.
maybe it's worth saying allow it and seeing what DOT comes back with.
Amy, I got a statement and I guess a question as well. Going back to Dwight's talking about the fees, do we want to have a two-tier fee? One, for what we're currently doing for $50, and then if they want to extend it out to the sidewalk, I'll use Jeremy for an example. If he's got his inside ABC permit and he's doing his business, he doesn't want to have the outside dining, which is, I think is great to give our business people this opportunity to expand and move, especially in this time we're going through a difficult time. Then he has that choice. He can pay the extra $50 and get his whole thing, or he can pay his just regular $50 to stay inside.
He can utilize his outside right now without having to have an outdoor dining permit from me. If he has grass space or a very nice new built deck, he can utilize that. That's not a separate permit. That is his property that he owns. This is to utilize
I'm
property.
talking about going into the right of way, if they choose to go into the
If
right
he
of way.
chose to go into the right of way for any dining,
Right.
he would have to have this permit process to
That's
prove
what
that
I'm
he
saying,
had
that-
insurance that covered off of his property.
Do we want to have a two-tier? That's what I'm saying. Do we want to have a tier for the business and business property, and then one for the business property and right of way? Or do we want to just leave it like it is and not consider that? Just a
I
thought.
think we ought to consider that, because that's adding property that he's using, and there's a big process of getting all this approved by y'all and DOT, that there ought to be a fee for that.
So I guess I'm a little bit confused because we permit, his building, his modifications and all of that, we already, if he has an ALE permit on his site, whether it's in his building or exterior, we already charge a permit fee to review that ALE and give him that. So he's already got that. This is just talking about extending and moving into the right-of-way. All of his business ventures that are on the property are already covered under existing permitting fees.
But this ordinance only covers the right-of-way, right?
Only the right-of-way.
And that's what I'm saying. It give the business owner an opportunity or a chance. If he wants to go into the right-of-way, that's his choice. Let him pay that fee. If he does not, then what he currently got takes care of everything on his property.
Correct. We wouldn't charge him anything for what he
Right.
currently has.
Right.
We would just charge him if he wants to use state-owned property for
Right.
his gain.
Right. And if they choose not to, then that's an expense he doesn't have to pay. and go-
Correct.
That's all I was saying.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking, we keep saying state-owned right-of-way. What about town right-of-way?
My intent is for this to be state and town.
State and town,
So
right.
for on island, that would
Okay, so what we
be,
need to say is just right-of-way, use of
yes,
right-of-way.
yes.
Right.
There will be some stuff that we have to provide to the DOT that's separate, that we may not have to, I don't have to get the DOT to come down here and agree that I can have dining on Craven Street. But I do have to get them to look at certain things. But I would recommend that the town still require the insurances and things.
Right, well, that's
Those
what
type
I'm
of things that
saying.
the DOT has outlined.
That's what I'm saying, so we're gonna need one like this, but for town
Our,
right-of-ways also?
no, sir, this is for sidewalk dining in the central business district. In my magic form and viewpoint, when I create that, there'll be a checkbox that says NCDOT right-of-way, which would be Roland 50 or 210,
Right.
and a checkbox that says Town of Surf City. And from those checkboxes, it would then choose in the workflow whether you go this way and you provide this information based on DOT, or whether you go this way and your information is just provided to the town. So it would change the steps slightly, but all the basic information would be the same. You'd still have to do the site plan, you'd still have to provide the insurance. It would just be whether or not you're covered under this agreement that the
Okay.
town has already done with DOT, and whether we just need to let them know, hey, this is one we're doing, we don't see it as a safety issue. Do you see it as a safety issue? Yes or no? And it also allows us to deny somebody based on safety issues.
Okay,
I think all the information, as I think you've indicated, needs to be uniform, whether it's state or whether it's town, so that they're all under the same umbrellas, as the saying goes. But I still have, and I'm just me, I don't know how the rest of them feel. I still think we need to give that business owner an opportunity to make a decision. Do you want to extend out in the right of way, or are you happy where you're at? And if they're happy where they're at, then the license they've got covers everything they need. If they want to extend in the right of way, then
Right.
we need to charge that. So that's where I'm going by, whatever that fee is, we need to have two tiers, the right of way and the regular business owner, whatever. the
Well,
case may be.
they would come and request, if they wanted to be in the right-of-way, they would come to me and request, or go through Viewpoint and request a right-of-way dining permit. So they would only request that if they wanted to be in the right-of-way. Like Surf Dogs, right now, has, what, 3 or 4 tables out there? They would need to actually do this because they are currently in the DOT right-of-way, and that way it can be looked at and formalized, and that we would make sure that the Department of Transportation, as well as the town, has the appropriate hold harmless information, so that if something did occur out there,
Would that include a parking lot too, someone's parking?
do what? No, this wouldn't cover parking lot.
no, this is just for dining.
Just on right-of-way too.
So what we've been looking at, you're talking about where we've started adding some,
Well, some business, which is fine, went to their parking lots and added.
Yes,
seating.
so-
Okay.
if they have come to me and asked me about it, we have looked at their parking. If they have adequate parking for a full-time operation, meaning after COVID-19, then they are allowed to remove a parking space or two, or, whatever meets, or whatever exceeds our parking requirements. From a COVID-19 standpoint, we haven't fully addressed it, but we would look at a reduced parking. Since you're at a reduced capacity, your need wouldn't be as great. We are going to be very careful in that, because temporary things become permanent.
How many businesses do you think we've got? 30? could utilize this?
The Sidewalk go down to the Bushanes?
Yes, ma'am, but I don't know that they actually have enough space to get 6 foot off the asphalt by the porch and all of that.
Who is that?
Bushanes, Patrice?
Patrice?
But then we'd probably be better off just to let our permit we've got now cover that as well. I would think, based on what I've heard. We don't need to have 2 tiers. Because if they've got their own property, we're talking about going in right away, we're gonna permit them or give them opportunity, you will know that. We're talking about roughly, I'm guessing, I don't know now. I think we've got around 30 businesses that could possibly utilize this in the C1 area. And if they do that, and we're charging them $50 for that, then we're talking about $1,500. And for what all our citizens and business, especially our businesses going through this, during this COVID-19, I don't see charging that $50.
Mr. Fowler, can I
Yes,
ask
ma'am.
a clarification question? So you're saying for current businesses, if they want to engage in this, then we do not charge them a fee? But if a new business comes
Then you
into
would.
town and wants this, then we
Yeah,
would?
then you would.
Okay.
And we could look
I
at
follow
adding
you.
that to next year's fee schedule, next budget year, to give us a chance to see, get the current ones
think that would
permitted,
be good.
see how things are going. We have a permit fee for so many things, I just wanted to bring that up today and see.
Are those fees written into the specific ordinance?
Sir,
Those other
the
fees, the other fees, are they written in the
There-
ordinance?
There is separate, they're part of the budget ordinance itself.
Yeah, they're part of it.
Not a part of this ordinance.
Okay, that's fine. So I make a motion to move forward with this. If we're done talking about it.
Okay, so just one clarification question.
Sure.
We are saying you can have logos, and that is the only change you want to this at this time?
We can unless DOT comes back and says we
Okay.
can't. Just to
Okay.
give them the idea that Jeremy brought up. That's nothing wrong with that.
So we're approving this with stipulation that DOT approves.
Right.
Correct, DOT will have to approve. Nope.
Correct. It's my
Motion,
understanding,
do I have a second?
but,
Mr.
Mayor,
Edens has a comment.
Oh, wait. Yes.
it's my understanding, am I on? Am I on? Okay. It's my understanding you're sending this back to staff to fine tune it? Is that? or-
I'm changing one word from no logos allowed to logos allowed.
That's what we're approving. And then if it comes back from DOT
Okay.
different, then we'll adjust it to be in compliance with DOT's.
All right, 'cause the sample ordinance is what, the one that's in the agenda package,
Yeah.
what we're passing.
Just one word.
Okay. Thank you.
So is it okay if we approve it that way?
I mean, it's a new, yeah, it's lawful for you to prove it that way. I'd like to spend a little time with it, but I don't want to slow up people. You know, if this will allow people to move forward quicker to pass it today. If we need to do a text amendment later, we can do that.
Right.
And this still has to go to DOT for review, and I'm not going to go tell anybody they have to get out of the right-of-way because they don't have a permit today.
Got it.
You're saying regardless, it's gonna take 2 months, at least?
Yeah, yes, sir.
We'll have another chance at it.
Yeah, if you want to look at it before it goes to DOT, just to make sure there's not a legal issue. Like I said, the reason that I took this one was, it was the last one approved by DOT. I changed our name, and I changed the type of furniture. I really made minimal changes in a hope to move it
Right.
through that process quicker and not have messed anything up.
But as you mentioned about the furniture, I know we're a coastal town and there's a little bit different traffic pattern concerns. Well, we have time to look at it, and I don't want to slow this down from people being able to open up quicker, so, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Miss Amy, appreciate it. Oh, wait a minute. Amy, did we want to go ahead and talk about, Waterside now? Do you want to present something on that? What, Kyle, we've got a,
That's up to council's pleasure. If you want to hear an update as to what's going on, Amy would be more than happy to.
okay, all right, thank you, ma'am. That's good. Corey. All right, she gets it.
Yeah, that's fine.
You're the main attraction.
And we thought budget was up for discussion.
So I don't have any of my paperwork and things in front of me because I didn't bring anything. But on water side, it obviously started a while before I started with the town. There was an idea of what this project was supposed to look like. Part of that idea was that the main road coming in and all roads would not have driveway access. They would have alleyways on the back so that the houses could be pulled closer to the front, and that there would be less separation between some of the buildings. In 2016, when that came forward, I guess things started changing. The original project was like 3,000 homes with a couple acres of commercial and all of that. Well, in 2016, they requested to go from a PUD to a multifamily cluster. It had originally been rural agriculture, had came in as a PUD, and then they wanted to change to MFC. During this time, we've gone through a couple planners, 3 developers, 3 different development teams. There are some people with the engineering firm that did the plans that are original. So there's just a lot of moving parts throughout this project. It's gone from, a 3,000 home subdivision to a 420 home, basically an R5 type subdivision where all of your driveway accesses are off of the front, all of the alleyways have been removed. So the preliminary plat was approved while Todd was here, and I think there were 2 iterations, but the last iteration that was approved had no alleyways, it had driveways on the front, and it listed setbacks that required 10 foot between buildings and did not meet the MFC completely. So multifamily cluster has a few different things in it that make it a little bit harder to interpret. It gives setbacks for the rear, the front, and the side yards. It also says that the distance between buildings should be 10 foot. And it says that lots should be no smaller than 2 acres. So the envisioning of multifamily cluster, or my understanding of it as I wasn't here at that time, was that you would start with a patio type home out front where the individual owned the patio home and not the property with it. And you would be allowed to push those homes closer together so that you had more open space in the back. So that was kind of the intent. It'd be kind of like condos, only they were individually owned houses with a homeowners association that managed all of this. As things progressed, it became a regular subdivision with individual houses with individual lots. So when we approved the final plat, it matched the preliminary plat. So I did not really look at the setbacks at the time. They matched what were on the preliminarily approved plat. I came in, I said everything matches. They've either given us money for the improvements they've not put in, or they've put in all the improvements. We moved forward. When we started with the building permits, I was out there one day with Steve, and we were looking at how close the houses were to the road. And standing out there when your house is only 12 foot off the right-of-way, I know that my husband drives a crew cab Toyota truck. It would not fit in the driveway and would completely block the sidewalk. Yes, we have a lovely ordinance that says you cannot block the sidewalk, but do we have time for our police officers to be enforcing nothing but blocking the sidewalk in a neighborhood? And also, when I looked at the dimensions of the garage, his truck wouldn't fit in the garage either. Even if I didn't have so much junk in there that, a vehicle wouldn't fit, even if it was completely cleaned out with the dimensions of that and his truck, especially if it had the trailer hitch in it or whatnot, it wouldn't fit. We are a coastal community. We have a lot of boaters. You can't fit any kind of boat in that, front yard, and that may be against the HOA rules. I don't know, but that was a concern. So I went back and started reading the ordinance, and the way that I read the ordinance, and when I talked to Kyle about it, it did not match the way that the setbacks were represented on there. So what we have to stop and look at is that original interpretation of having houses that are closer together to increase the amount of open space what we're going for. In this particular instance, the open space is wetland and stormwater ponds predominantly. There's not a significant amount of upland development or developable property that was given to that open space. Yes, they could have gotten permits to fill some wetland and could have increased that, but that's a time-consuming project, as we've seen with Mr. Poindexter, who's been working with the Army Corps for 2 years, to get his project going. So at this time, Waterside has come back with a presentation that says, our understanding was this, we went forward on good faith. We've got a few houses that we've already started building that have 5-foot setbacks. With the model that we have, we cannot build the houses that we have chosen. We cannot build on the lots that we have and go back to a 7.5, because my initial request was, why don't we just rezone this to R5? You are building an R5 subdivision. But with the models that they're using, they cannot meet the side setbacks. And then when you get into phase 3, which we have not truly looked at yet, we've only looked at kind of a bubble plan on it, some of those lots do get below 5,000 square feet. 5,000 square feet is their smallest lot size for single-family homes currently. So right now, they will be coming to planning board to request a modification that allows the setbacks to be smaller, to be 5 foot on the side. They will be requesting as small as a 40-foot lot width. Our smallest lot width is currently 50 feet. So 4,500 square feet, 40-foot lot width, and a 5-foot setback, or the side setback, excuse me, are the biggest changes that they would be requesting.
You don't think that's good to do, right? Correct? I'm listening to you.
I think if we're building an R5 neighborhood, we should build an R5 neighborhood. If you want to utilize multifamily cluster and things like that, they are providing the open space, but they're not providing the back alleyways that were originally a part of that conversation. So the conversations that started and that this was kind of agreed to, I guess, are different than what the end product was. But no matter what, our words don't match. Our MFC words do not match our MFC construction. At best, they can do a 2-acre lot that has multiple structures that are 10 feet apart within it, with the larger property having the setbacks. But they are recording individual lots.
So you don't think we should do that?
I don't.
So,
I don't.
You don't? Okay. That just was your opinion. It's just, can you answer?
I don't think we should go that small.
so I attended that planning board meeting
Right.
when we had this discussion, and I just made an observation, Amy, if you recall. I think they were, because of the mistake made to approve that plat, the way it was designed with a 10-foot separation between homes, the planning board, I think, was asking to change our ordinance so that it matches the mistake. And I said, I brought up that fire that occurred up the road there recently, that I couldn't fathom how we would be considering putting homes closer together. And that, just take a look at, should we be changing our ordinance and now sending precedents for future developments to be closer than they are, or have the way it's written today. So that is what they took a pause. I don't know. I'm looking forward to the next planning board to see what the discussion is, but that's what she's describing. They were going to change, or ask to change the ordinance to be closer, to allow this to occur. Is that not right?
The intent of MFC is to move your houses closer together to allow for the greater amount of dedicated open space or non-developed area. That was the intent of it. The way that it's written and what they're doing are different.
Right.
So I do think no matter what happens with this, clarification needs to be given to the MFC where we can utilize it and how it can be utilized. Because right now there is some gray in there.
In other words, they're interpreting it different than what we actually.
They're interpreting
meant
it
for to
different
be,
than
but
what
it's-
I
but it could
interpreted
be.
it.
It could be because of the way it was written, right?
I think from some conversations that happened early on led to taking item, I think it's H, and saying that it applies to the overall tract.
Right.
And just saying, okay, we have a couple, 90 acres in this first part.
Right.
We only have to have those on the 90-acre perimeter. And what we do inside doesn't really matter. It's a shell game. We can move stuff around however we want. I don't think that that is how the ordinance was written if you are going to subdivide.
Is the wetlands part of that calculation? Like,
The wetland is part of the overall, and that is the majority.
that counts as open space, is what I'm saying?
It does in our
Even though it's
ordinance, yes, sir.
unusable?
I mean, I'm not
No,
gonna say
but
it's
I mean-
completely unusable, because I haven't been out there and walked it. I mean, you might could have some trails during dry times.
Okay.
But
it-
wetland is counted everywhere. I mean,
Yes, sir. The
you
wetland
count it
is-
in the overall.
Just a grass that's growing on it that's considered
Right.
wet, it may not actually be wet.
Teresa, liaison for planning board, what's your take on all this?
I say we take it back to the planning board, you give them your suggestion of how it should be. How many permits are out right now for building homes?
I think it was like 10 or 12. We have
All
issued.
for the LMFC?
Yes, we have issued permits, but not all of those have started construction.
So we're on the
stopped.
line for 10.
Technically, if we missed the ordinance,
Mm-hmm.
if we miss something, it doesn't mean you get to do it for free anyway.
Right.
So we would try to work with them in a way to see what we could do, but I don't know.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
No, it doesn't. I'd say stay with our ordinance. When we created 5,000 minimum square feet for a lot, there was a reason for that here in the town, and we need to stay with that. And whatever you do, or however you need to do, we control it. You planning, zoning. You need to figure out what you're gonna do, check with our attorney, or check with the managing attorney, make sure that we're standing on good legal ground, and stand by your guns, and we'll stand by you.
Well, see, the problem is they've probably got, most of them, and I think you said some of them later on wouldn't have it, but they've probably got the 5,000 square foot per house.
Phase 1 and 2 has a minimum of 5,000
But there
square
still should be a minimum setback
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
feet. Now,
that they have.
We're talking about safety as far as setback.
Right.
We don't need to,
now
we need to stay with that.
I do want to say, for one thing, and one thing that they have brought up, our side setbacks allow a 12-foot by 2-foot bump out on all buildings. And
Right.
I don't know if you've noticed going off the bridge, the ones right there, they have like 2 foot in between them, and there's like 3. It looks like a mega camper.
Right.
All the bump outs. So that does technically get you down to about a 5.5-foot setback possibility.
And you can uncover half of your side yard setback with any uncovered decking, HVA stands, anything of that nature. So if you consider all the structure that's actually in the setbacks already all over, that's for any zoning classification.
Our next planning board meeting is next Thursday,
Yes, ma'am. You should get the agenda tomorrow.
and Waterside will be here at the meeting.
Yep, they're going to give a presentation based on the slides that will be in your packet. And I can send that.
Is this a Zoom or in-person meeting?
It's going to be a Zoom. It's just, for me, it's easier with being able to share the slides and all of that. And then by the time we have all a planning board, our liaisons, our alternates, we get pretty full pretty quick.
It's just very hard for everyone to get on the same page and, see exactly, I think, when we're on Zoom.
We can consider trying another option. If we moved to the gym, which is something that Kyle and I had possibly talked to, and I had talked with Jason about, we don't necessarily have a good overhead projector option.
Did you move it here?
With staff, liaisons, and planning board, I'm already at like 14 or 15 people without inviting Kyle or the public or the mayor or, so our board is larger, and then we have our liaisons, so we're already kind of larger. We can further discuss.
I mean, generally, we are exempt if we do want to hold that here. I figured we gotta be over there for the 19th, so we could set it up in the gym and we could do printout slides for folks.
I think it's just,
Yeah.
we'll get a better feel if it's in person.
I would consult with your chairman on that,
Okay.
and, you know, mention to him that there's a desire to have this in person. And some members might not show up, they might just do it by Zoom, I'm not sure, but we will accommodate if we need to.
Well, I make that recommendation, if you can do it, do it. Because I think it's better, Teresa said, she's got a point, you know, it's better to be there, we can all get on the same page.
Better conversation.
Yes, and see the expressions of the ones there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, ma'am, appreciate it.
I was thinking the same thing.
I think it's just something that we
Yeah, for sure.
really need to sit down and look at again. And, of course, I think, you know, part of it might be they're interpreting it different than what we were interpreting it by council. And, so
I think you're right.
we need to sit down.
Interpretation should stand.
We may need to sit down and explain it.
Yeah. And it's easier to explain in person than it is, like Teresa said, in a Zoom meeting.
Right.
Because everybody don't get on the same page. And I think it would be better if you had the meeting in person, so there would no reason for you to leave there without having clarification. And a lot of times that Zoom meeting leaves questions.
Mr. Mayor, I was gonna say, if there's time that anybody wants to come in and go over this stuff, just let me know and I'll work with Amy to set up a time. It can get very convoluted very quick, with zoning ordinance stuff.
What I do? Flip these papers around so much I lost my agenda.
You're down to
Oh,
council.
I'm down here, okay.
To,
Next thing is council forum.
No, we don't have one. It'd be, yeah.
Why don't we have a council?
Public. We don't have a public forum. Just-
No, council forum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, council, that's you.
That's me.
In fact, since I did that, I'm gonna call on you first.
Well, I hope everybody, I'm glad the ones that are on and can hear us. And I commend the staff for their work on the budget. And I hope everyone had a wonderful Memorial Day, and hope this COVID-19 will soon be able to get back to normalcy. I don't know when that's going to be, but hope everyone has a good weekend, and that's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mayor Pro-Tem Buddy Fowler.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank everyone for tuning in and listening to their conversations and as we try to handle town business. And on another note, as you know, we've been pretty inundated by a lot of visitors here on the island, which is a good thing, especially for our businesses. But I ask that we've done a good job so far, and I ask you to continue to do that, have patience with our visitors, and also have patience with the traffic we've got. Maybe eventually all of them will understand that the traffic circle is a traffic circle and not a stop and see circle, and back our traffic up. But with that being said, it's been a pleasure to see the sun come out and get some of this rain out of the way. And with that, I thank my colleagues for all they're doing to help the town of Surf City. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
All righty. Mr. Jeremy Sugar.
All right, a couple of things real quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to use the expression, I just really want to pay some compliments towards the council. You've all heard the comment about, is the tail wagging the dog or the dog wagging the tail? In this particular budget session, this budget time, the dog is definitely wagging the tail. And I just want to, first off, Teresa, Councilwoman Batson, the mayor, myself, for example, have met week after week after week, going line by line by line. I've met with Councilman Fowler, line by line by line. We've met with Mr. Torres, line by line, discussing things. And it's something that everyone's desires were to trim fat, to make sure that every aspect of our budget was tight, to make sure that we weren't spending anything. And I know the mayor used the analogy. It was probably the best analogy of the day when he said, at home, when things are tight, you do things different.
That's right.
Right? And that's what this council is doing for this city. So I just want to commend the council for that. This has not been an easy process, and I know I've spent tons of hours outside of this, and I know the mayor has, and the other council has also. Also am pleased with the businesses. I know that every business owner, I've talked to quite a few successful business owners around here that said they're having a better year now than they had 12 months ago in the circumstances that we have. So I'm quite pleased with that. I'm a liaison with the chamber and the beautification. We're getting meetings ramped back up there, so you're going to see that. And I appreciate Kyle taking some action. I just want to, I was driving up the bridge on Friday, and I said to Kyle, I know it's 5 o'clock, and I normally don't call. I would just normally call Doug and bother him, but he's tired of listening to me. So I said to Kyle, there's about 9 pieces of large debris on the bridge. I don't care about, I know it needs swept, all that, we don't know, you're waiting for the state for that, but could you have somebody take, I can stop and get it. He said, oh God, please no. Okay, don't do that, okay? He goes, no, I'll have it taken care of. And I had turned around, went to my shop, and by the time I left an hour later, there was a truck picking up debris, and that's good that he's proactive. And people coming on the island that weekend, we wanted to see somewhat of a clean existence. Next thing I want to say is, a visitor came in, vacationer, and said that they feel our island is safe. And that is an attestament to what we've done here as a staff and what we've done for police, fire, and what our council has done. And then the last part is, I just want to say again to Doug, appreciate what you have done. I know that most people don't always tell you thank you because they are always chewing you out. Always yelling at you, always telling what you did wrong. And I'm telling you, you're being proactive, riding on the beach, having a control of that, spending time with our police department, our fire department, and knowing what our businesses need. It's greatly appreciated. And in this budget time, making sure that things are right. So I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate that.
Well, okay, Mr. Torres.
Thank you, Mayor. Fellow council members, our attorney, the town manager, and all of our town employees for the hard work that you have done for this budget specifically, but also for the day-to-day work that you do every day to make Surf City the town and community we love and enjoy. I would be remiss if I did not address what is occurring across our country. The last few days and evenings, as you have all seen the news, as we continue to battle the COVID-19 pandemic, we are now experiencing unmitigated racial tensions across our country. I, like others around our nation, was appalled by what we witnessed happen to Mr. George Floyd on May 25th, a tragic and unnecessary death at the hands of a few bad police officers. Our prayers continue to go out with the Floyd family and their friends. However, what we are also witnessing in regards to the violent demonstrations across major metropolitan areas is opportunists taking advantage and hijacking what would otherwise be peaceful protests for a just cause. We as Americans have every right to peaceably assemble as it's afforded by the First Amendment in our Constitution, but we do not have a right to destroy personal property and/or attack innocent people. We should all support people fighting for injustice, prejudice in our country. It is the right thing to do for all of our Americans. I am unequivocally opposed to the radical and fringe groups terrorizing our nation, and I hope that they are brought to justice immediately. In closing, please pray for our country, our leaders, our citizens, but now more than ever, our law enforcement officers as they do everything they can to bring a peaceful end to this tragic time. Thank you all for attending today, and God bless us all.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. Well said. Ms. Teresa.
Thank you, Dwight. I was going to speak on that as well, and you did a very good job. And it's very hard for communities to come together all on the same page because it brings out so many feelings of hurt and grief that a lot of people just don't know how to deal with. But our community has a lot of respect for our businesses, our residents, and if it came down to it, we have a mayor that would take a stand and wouldn't allow it to happen here. So I just wanted to say thank you for all the departments and to the town manager for producing the Surf City Government Update and for putting it online for all our citizens to review. I think it's so helpful. It keeps everybody informed, and I like to read it and share it with others. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing that. I think that we did the right thing as far as the budget was concerned. We've been working 18 years on this federal project, and not us, but a lot of others that have put a lot of time and effort between all three towns, our state and federal government, and we have a chance to get a beach, a renourished beach, an engineered beach, and to keep to make that happen, we had to make cuts that were hard to make on the departments. It was nothing against any of the departments. We will get our fire trucks, we will get our police cars, but this had to come first. It's been waiting 18 years in hand. Where we got the budget done with hopefully 0% tax increase, and I think all of our residents and business owners would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Teresa. And I appreciate what both of you said about what's going on in our country this day at this time. And it does hurt. You know, one bad apple in a barrel can rot the whole barrel of apples. And that's what we have here. We have just a few bad apples. And police department has some bad apples. The community has some bad apples. And they're the ones that are causing all the destruction that's going on. I know when they were doing the riots, they had a good, peaceful riot in Wilmington one night, and then the next riot that came out, there was a notice that came out from the NAACP and from Black Lives Matter asking that people not come to one that was going on. I can't remember whether it was Saturday night or Sunday night when all the damage was done. But they had asked the people not to come out because they knew what was coming out was people that just wanted to cause trouble. And I agree, we need to do something with those ones that's causing trouble. I mean, that's something that we have, you know, got to get control of. And we're just fortunate in our community that as of right now, we don't have it. And so we better consider ourselves blessed because of that. And so anyway, I am thankful for that. It's something that we need to pray about every day and pray for the families of the ones that are hurt. But also, I am looking forward to this beach nourishment project, and as I was sitting here and Teresa was talking, the person that comes to my mind was Councilman Mike Curley. Now, he spent just about his whole time on council, which he was on council a right good little while, working for this beach project. I haven't talked to him in a long time. I would love to find a number. I think his number that he had is no longer working. If anybody that's listening to this or anybody in the community knows a number that we can get in touch with him, and hopefully he's still with us, then I would love to let him know what his work has accomplished. And, because I think we owe him a big gratitude for the work that he did on it, as well as a lot of other people, but he just comes to mind. And so anyway, if somebody has a contact for him, I know he went back to Kentucky to stay with his daughter so she could look after him. And so if somebody's got a contact for him, I'd appreciate if they get it to the town for me. But other than that, again, once, it's just like all the rest of them said, I appreciate what everybody that works with the town worked hard on this budget, trying to get their ideas in and looking at what they could get by with. And because you can't have everything you want, so you got to figure out what you got to have and get by with. So I appreciate everybody working on it and all the hard work they did. So at this time, if we have nothing else, I will turn it over to our town attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick items. One, on this past Saturday, May 30th, Governor Cooper issued Executive Order 142, which extended Executive Order 124, which was issued on March 31st. To summarize, Executive Order 124 suspended a municipality's right to disconnect utility services from March 31st through July 29th. Well, now it's been extended through July 29th. It also prohibits a municipality from charging late payments for services between March 31st and the end of the executive order. And lastly, or two more things, it also requires municipalities to report essentially their financial status to the Utilities Commission. Executive Order 142 extends all of those provisions through July 29th unless otherwise extended. And it also requires the town to, however we normally report to our utility customers, report the fact that these various suspensions are in effect through July 29th, and we are required to allow them to enter into payment plans for services rendering during that time frame. Unless there's any questions about that, I'll move on to my second and last topic. The federal project, I'm pleased to inform you that at 6:55 last night, Mr. Charles Riggs sent over 51 sheets of the surveys. Each sheet has roughly 8 to 10 properties on it, depending on the size of the property. The importance of that is the sheet shows both the mean high water mark as well as the construction template edge, and we are going to use those as exhibits to the various easements, so the property owners will know exactly where the easement is located. Before you, I believe you also have the letter staff and I came up with to go out to all of the affected property owners. The beginning of the letter essentially describes the project and lets them know the good news, if they don't know already, that the project's been funded. There's a brief description of the project benefits. There's a request for their help to help us get these easements in voluntarily. And then in the unfortunate event we can't get the easements in on time voluntarily, we let them know that we intend and are required to condemn the easement because the project cannot go forward until we have all of the easements in hand. So that's where we're on that, and unless you have, you also have the notice of action, I'm sorry, that's the third document you have. That's everything we have to do as a prerequisite to actually file the suits. In the unfortunate event we have to file the suits. So unless anyone has any questions, that concludes my report.
Anybody got any questions for the attorney?
When this letter goes out, the easement's going out with them to sign?
Yeah.
No.
No?
Well, we want to get this out right away so it's 30 days before we file, and by that, since it has the notice of action in it, since we got the Charles Riggs plats last night, obviously staff didn't stay after 6:55. Right. I understand from Stephanie and Cal they're hard at work right now, but we have everything we need, so The intention would be to get that letter out immediately, and that letter references that a subsequent letter's coming, and get get the easements themselves out this week.
Let me ask a question
Yep.
pertaining to that.
Yes, sir.
Do we know when the cutoff date is for the Corps of Engineers for us to have that information to them?
They, that date has been a floating date. I'm shooting for mid-July as the last date they gave us, and I'm artificially backing that up a week to give us a little wiggle room. Thus far, they have not shortened the time frame. They've extended it each time, but where we are right now, we can accommodate the most recent deadline they gave us.
Okay, thank you.
The goal is to have these letters out in the mail, the postmark by Thursday.
And the easements will probably be ready by Friday.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the package has various documents. No,
Yeah, you have a package that has everything that will be
Right.
going out.
That's what I'm saying, so this is not going out.
the legal easement's not going out until we take, if you'll look at you should have a schematic, one of these.
Yeah.
Right.
We have to match up
Oh,
each
okay.
property number.
All right. So you're just sending the letter out now?
Just the letter, it's a 2-page front and back. Well, it'll probably be,
Okay, so that's what's going out.
and
And the notice.
and the notice of action, which is not in your packet, it's a separate document.
Okay, all right, clarification, thank you. Okay, I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody's hard work on this. I know it's been a lot of work to get to this point, to where we can send these easements out. And I appreciate the public, if they will, read this letter and all, but what's most important is as soon as you receive the documents for the easement, that you have those signed and returned to the town, and they have, what, 30 days? How long do they have to return them?
We're going to file on the 31st day. I think we asked them to get it back in 3 weeks.
Okay,
20 days.
asking you,
Received by July the 6th.
Right. And obviously,
okay.
if we get one in on the way to the courthouse, we're not going to file that lawsuit.
Right, but at least, in other words, return it as soon as you possibly
Right.
can, and within like 3 weeks after receiving it, to keep us from having to file in the courthouse for it. So we appreciate everybody working with us, and
Mayor, if I may.
I know you're going to be pleased with what you get out of it.
I should have mentioned this in my report, just so the public knows. In the past, I've received for other projects all kinds of questions, and it's clear to me that not everybody understands the purpose of this type of easement. This is not an easement for their house. This is not an easement for their street side yard. This is an easement essentially where the dry sand beach is on the seaward side of the house, where most people are out sunbathing and things of that nature. And it is to allow us to have contractors out there periodically to nourish the beach. And to the extent someone out there may have a concern as to, I mean, I've even had people ask me if they were going to be thrown out of their house, and I'm like, no, this has nothing to do with your house. And I understand that if you don't know what it, never had to deal with easements and all that, but to the extent anyone's attending this meeting, essentially the scope of the easement is the seaward side of the home in the general area where the public recreates and uses the beach.
Right, this is just so we can build you about a 300 or 400 foot beach out in front of your house. It's what it's for.
Well, and the Corps, everyone, the whole funding, the legislation that Congress, the United States Congress passed was flood mitigation, was the purpose of it. And we lay all that out in the letter, and the Corps is on record stating that it should provide additional protection for oceanfront homeowners, including everybody behind them.
Well, that's right, and that's a mistake most people made. They think this is just for oceanfront homeowners, but it protects all the homes behind and increases the value of your property, even if you don't live on the island. If you live over on the mainland, it still increases the value of your property there and makes your property more desirable even if you live in a subdivision on the mainland side. Because what people are coming to this area for is that beach out there. And so it just, it's for the good of the whole community, well, the whole state, the whole country. So that's why the federal government's willing to work with us on it. Okay. Do you have anything else, Councilman?
No, sir, thank you.
Okey-doke. All righty. Does, you have anything else, Kyle, you'd like to bring before the
I'll just
panel?
give an update, and Stephanie and I will update council on closed session matters.
Okay, all right, so this is it, and who's got to close?
Make a motion, we go into closed session.
For personnel,
Okay. You want to call, you want to read your
well,
numbers?
the motion is, it's for both a personnel matter and for these easements we're talking about. The public's entitled, if they ask, to know the property addresses. It's over 600 properties. That information is available from either me or the town the UK Kyle designated you from the town manager. But if I sit here and read the address for 600 and something properties, everyone's going to be mad. So,
Right. In other words, it's any oceanfront property in the town of Surf City.
It's
Is what it covers. Okay,
664 properties.
664 properties. Okay, do I have a second on that? You already seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we will now go into closed session.
closed session.
Okay, since we're back in open session, does anybody
Okay.
else have
Well,
anything
Mayor,
they
we-
need to bring before the board?
We get- Well,
Sorry about that.
my part? All right, Mayor and members of the public who are attending remotely, we are back in open session and no action was taken in closed session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eads. Okay, since we're back in open session and nothing was going, we don't need any votes, but does anybody have anything else to come before the board? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, now you can go get your turkey sandwich.